Hi there, imaginary creature lovers. Welcome back to another week. I hope that you've had a nice week. Today, I have a fun show and tell for you to get off to our start, and I think that you're going to enjoy it. Just a second, let me get it for you. It's pretty big. Has to do with what we're going to be talking about today. Ooh, look at how big this is. It's not even going to fit in the screen at one time. It's a samurai sword. This belongs to one of my sons. It's not one that's come from China, although I did get one of my sons a sword from China, but it's a replica of a samurai sword. And you can see that it has some things of stuff that we have talked about already this year that represent things from China. So, or from Japan. Let's see what's on the end here. It looks like there is a dragon on the end, and we've talked about Chinese dragons. On this end, it looks like, if I show it to you up close, that looks like a phoenix, an artist representation of a phoenix. And then there are some oriental dragons. I don't know that you'll be able to see it if I put it up close there. Maybe you can see the dragons around the inside there. And then if I pull it apart, you can see that this is a really long sword. It keeps coming out farther and farther. There we go. Really long sword. It's really pretty. Let's see, there's the end of it finally. So this is a representation of the really long samurai swords that warriors had. I thought you might like to see that today because we're going to hear a story today from the Izumo Cycle in a series of myths about the gods who lived in the Izumo area of Western Japan. So let me share the screen so that we can read this fun story today. There we go, sharing the screen. And I thought you'd like to see the pictures as I read the story. So here is, oh look, he's got his samurai sword right out there, just like the one that I showed you just a minute ago. So this story is about Susanoo, the storm god, who was banished from the heavens because he was annoying his sister Amaterasu, the sun goddess. He married the princess of the rice paddies, and together they settled in Izumo. Their son, Okuninushi, was an important character in these stories. So let's get started with one of these stories. Okuninushi had 80 brothers, and they all wanted to marry a beautiful princess named Yagamahime. Boy, that's a lot of competition for, for Yagamahime. 80 suitors, that's quite a few. The brothers set off ahead, leading Okuninushi to carry the baggage. On their way, they met a rabbit that was in great pain because it had lost all its fur. "What can I do to grow back my fur?" pleaded the rabbit. "Bathe in salty water," replied the wicked brothers, and they went on their way. When the rabbit did this, it only made its pain worse. Well, of course it would, wouldn't it? If you've ever had a cut or a sore and you got in touch with anything salty, you know how badly that stings, don't you? So that was very wicked of them to say that. A little while later, Okuninushi met the suffering rabbit. "How did you lose your fur?" asked Okuninushi kindly. The rabbit began to recount his sorry tale. "I was on my way to visit Princess Yagamahime and needed to cross the water between our islands. I said to the crocodile that my family had more members than his. It disagreed. So I suggested that his family all line up from the shore to shore and I will count them. They did as I asked, and I was able to hop across their backs. So he went from one to the other so that he could get from one shore to the other shore, from one island to the other. That was pretty tricky, wasn't it? As I neared the shore, the crocodiles realized that I had tricked them, and the last one seized me and tore off my skin as I escaped. What can I do to grow it back? Bathe in fresh water and then roll in the seeds of the cattail reed, suggested Okushinu. So there's the cattail reeds right there. We have some around here. If you go close to a marshy area, like down by the University of Washington, you can see some cattail reeds like that. The rabbit followed his instructions and its fur grew back. The rabbit then revealed itself to be a god and promised Okuninushi that he would marry the princess. His brothers were very jealous and angry. They rolled a white hot boulder down the mountain towards Okuninushi. Thinking it was a boar, he grabbed it and was burned to death. But the gods revived him. The brothers then crushed him to death, but again, the gods brought him back to life and he fled to the underworld where his adventures continued. So, this is what happened next. In the underworld, Okunishinu met his half sister Suserohime, who he fell in love with. But their father, Susanoo, was not happy about this, and he wanted Okunishinu to prove himself a worthy husband and set him some difficult tasks. Suserohime helped him to succeed, but their father still refused to let them marry. So one night, while Susanoo slept, Okuninushi crept into his room and tied his long hair to the rafters of the palace. Then, taking his father's weapon and musical instrument called a koto, he ran away with Suserohime. When Susanoo awoke, he had to pull down the palace before he could give chase because you see, they had tied his long hair way up to the rafters. So when he woke up, he was all caught in the rafters. So before he could get loose, he had to pull down the house and then get himself loose from the house before he could run after them. So they had quite a head start. So that worked out pretty well for them. So Okuninushi and Suserohime left the underworld, and he used his father's weapons to fight his brothers and then became a powerful ruler of Izumo. Later, he became the god of abundance, medicine, magic, and happy marriage. So that ended up to be quite a nice ending to this tale, didn't it? Yes. So lots of fun things. And then they have lots of stories in this collection from the Izumo Cycle. It's a series of myths. So if you want, you could look up the Izumo Cycle and find those stories and read some more about Susanoo, the father, and about Okuninushi and the legends that go along with that. Now, there's a couple craft ideas that I have for you this week. One of them is suggested right here, which would be kind of fun. This one says is to make a finger puppet using some pieces of felt like this. It wouldn't have to be this fancy, but you could put together a little bit of felt, different colors here, and make a little finger puppet. You could even take, to make a finger puppet, you could take one of those dollar store little knit mittens and make a little finger puppet with those too. And this could be the rabbit. And then you can use an old sock and make the crocodile out of this and then just put little decorations on the top and little buttons here and a little bit of extra material down here. And then you can even just glue them on. You don't even need to sew them. And that can make some fun, you can make some fun plays out of that, being the crocodile and the bunny trying to get across from island, hopping from island to island. So that could be kind of a fun thing. You could make up some stories and plays with that. Then the other thing that I'm going to show you when we link down below, the next thing I'm going to show you is I have about a little 4-minute video on how you can make your own origami samurai sword. It's not very difficult to do, but what I would suggest that you do is it doesn't have words to it. So what you need to do is after you do each, just pause it as you go along. And so that will give you time to fold everything. And what I want you to notice when you do origami is origami, usually one side mirrors the other side. So once you fold one side, you usually fold the other side matching it. And so once you kind of get the hang of that, I think it makes it a little bit easier. And the other thing is to notice that there's usually, the fun thing about origami is it usually follows very interesting angles. So there is fun geometry to it. So usually there's a very clever, they don't just say, oh, just fold it any old way. It's usually finding an interesting pattern of angles to it. So you're actually looking to make certain triangles, usually most of the time. So folding into a corner usually. So notice that as you're going along. And then it always turns out better if you can take your finger and make with your fingernail or the edge of your finger, if you can make a very, very sharp, once you get it kind of worked in there, make a very sharp line, because then you can see when you open it up, because sometimes you open it back up and then refold it a different direction. And if you've made it very, very sharp and crisp, that makes it easier to refold in a different direction. And then the other piece of advice, last piece of advice I would give you with origami is sometimes you kind of have to work the edges a little bit to get it to fold exactly the way you want it to. And don't be afraid to do that. That's okay. It sometimes takes a little bit of kind of massaging and working it to get it just in the right place. And that's okay. And you get better at it the more you do it. So I think you'll enjoy this one. I don't think this one's all that difficult, especially compared to the one that I gave you last week or last time with the dragon. So give it a try. I think you'll enjoy it. And it turns out looking like a pretty neat sword. So I think you'll like it. I hope you have a great week, and I hope you enjoyed this story about Okuninushi or Okuninushi. And have a great week. Tell me how you liked the story. And if you do the origami, make sure you send us a picture so we can enjoy how it turned out. If you don't have origami paper, don't worry about it. Just use a regular piece of computer paper and just make sure you start out with it looking the way it's supposed to. I think this one, as I recall, doesn't have to be starting in a square, but just check it out. I'm not 100% sure about that. So just make sure you look before you start. Okay, have a great week, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.